Hi, I'm Doyle Bishop with Tulsa Heaters Midstream. On this channel, you can expect to hear about all things related to process heating, but sometimes the topics aren't technical, but most of the time they are, so thanks for joining. Hi, I'm Doyle Bishop with Tulsa Heaters Midstream. Today, I'd like to talk to you about flames, specifically burner flames inside a fire heater. I'm doing it a little bit differently. I'm known around the office as the whiteboard guy, but I'm stepping up my game today. I'm going to go with a slide, PowerPoint slide. I think it just helps with the overall picture of what I'm talking to you about. So everyone knows what flames are, right? What is a flame? What's actually happening? Well, it's actually a chemical reaction with fuel and air. And fuel, in our case, is normally something like methane, or propane, or butane, which has carbon and hydrogen in it, and it reacts with the oxygen. And that chemical reaction is obviously hot. It puts out visible light, and it can be yellow or red or blue. So while we're on the color topic, what makes color? And why is it yellow sometimes and why is it blue sometimes? The more complicated or the bigger the molecule, the more chance that you'll have a yellow flame. What happens is that big long molecule, when you're oxidizing it or burning it, it breaks apart, you get some free carbon. And when I have free carbon, when it burns or oxidizes, it makes a yellow colored flame. So oil, which has very long chain molecules, when I burn it, I get a lot of free carbon, I get a bright yellow flame, and it's not bad, it's a good color. Whereas in a gas plant where I have methane, it's a very simple molecule, it's CH4. When I'm burning that, I don't get the free carbon, and I usually get blue flame. In general, if I have a burner that's burning methane, and it's just solely a yellow colored flame, and there's really no blue, no significant parts of that flame are blue, chances are I'm not doing a good job with mixing, and that burner needs to be repaired or worked on in some fashion. So in that regard, if it's a simple fuel like natural gas or methane, and a large part is yellow, yes, it could be cause for concern. So we've got color out of the way. Now let's talk about this concept. What makes a coil fail? Usually it's too high of a temperature. Many times it's flame impingement. It all distills down to temperature. Too hot of a gas on a coil can cause the coil to fail. And how does that work? So let's look at that. I'm going to sketch a little bit. So let's think about what happens if I have a pipe, i.e. coil, and I have fluid going through that coil. If I put too much heat into that coil, this film temperature in the coil gets too hot, meaning the gases or the liquids that come in contact with this inside surface where there's too much heat, I get a real high film temperature, too high, especially with liquids. And then I can lay down carbon, I'll lay down a deposition of carbon. Now this heat transfer that's trying to go in there is blocked, because that carbon becomes insulating. And when it insulates, this portion of the tube right here gets really hot, too hot. If it gets too hot, it fails, and I've got a failed coil. So it's really not about flame hitting a tube. Really, it's more about how hot is this gas, how much radiation is going into that tube at that location. But it stands to reason, if I can move the flame further away from the coil, that coil is not going to get as hot. So as a furnace designer or heater designer, I need to be wary or cognizant of the shape of the flame, how big is the flame, so I know where to position that coil in relation to the flame. So in general, you don't want to have flame impingement. That's a good indication. If you look in a heater, you open up the sight door, you're looking in. If you see flame on a coil, it's probably not a good thing. and you're probably going to have premature failure of that coil. Is it possible to have impingement and not have a problem? It is definitely possible. Let me go back to this slide. So let's look at this. This is a typical pattern. This is actually really nice in that the flame is very small. It's a long way away from the tube. Let's say I had just a little bit of leak of gas coming out of a riser, a gas riser, and it just slowly came up here and burned on that tube. Think of it like this. If I had like a match or a candle and I came inside of this furnace and I put a match or a candle on that tube and just held it there, the flame is touching the tube. Do you think that's going to burn a hole in the tube? It's not, right? It's just not enough heat, not enough duty. So I can have situations where I have a little bit of impingement on a tube, but it's not significant enough to actually damage the tube or overheat the fluid inside the tube. So it is possible to have flame impingement and not be the end of the world. But if I'm training operators, hey, if you see flame impingement, you should consult the heater manufacturer, the burner manufacturer, and see if you can get it off the tube. So as a heater manufacturer, what's my goal when I look at designing the heater so it doesn't have a flame impingement problem? It's pretty simple, right? One is, hey, I've got a flame that's this volume. Make sure that this tube diameter, or this tube circle, isn't anywhere close to that flame volume. So the key as a burner guy or a heater guy is, hey, make the heater big enough so that the flame is not touching the tube. Pretty simple. So when you look at heaters and you start evaluating, hey, is this a robust heater? Look at how big this radiance section is. This is what we call the radiance section. Compare that. Look at all the heaters that you're evaluating to purchase and compare the size of the radiance section, and that'll give you an indication of how robust the heater is. If you're trying to put 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag, usually the bag will break. Same with heaters. If I try to constrain this flame too tight of a confine, it will find its way to the tube and you'll have premature failure of that tube. So, in summary, blue flame is the best when you're burning natural gas. Flame impingement is usually an indication that something's wrong. And as a burner supplier or a burner purchaser, bigger is better. Hey, thanks for joining. If you enjoyed this episode, hit like or subscribe to get more information about process heating and Tulsa Heaters Midstream.